merciful Creator, your hand is open wide to satisfy the needs of every living creature. Make us thankful for your loving providence and grant that we, remembering the account that we must one day give, may be faithful stewards of your good gifts. Amen.
Okay, as we call the meeting to order, do we need to do opening statements as far as this running as a hybrid meeting? You know? Okay. All right, well, the first order for agenda is, I assume it's going to be the public comment. I know we've got a couple of gentlemen in the public ready to come forward, so if you're going to speak in public. Okay, it's on now. Better? Okay. All right, so we're going to do public comment. Each person to come up will have 3 minutes. If you're going to come up as 2 folks, that's fine too. Just have 3 minutes apiece. We'll start the timer running. As you get to the end of your second minute, a timer will go off to beep, and you'll have 1 minute to wrap it up, and then we'll let you know when it ends from there. So we'll start with public comment for the people that are here, or, I'm sorry, roll call first. Thank you.
Commissioner Jack Mariano,
Here.
Commissioner Catherine Starkey, Cynthia Armstrong,
Here.
Dr. Lisa Richardson,
She's
Present.
here.
thank you.
Here.
David Sumter, Lauren Maselli,
Here.
Kristen Tonkin,
Here.
Bruce Mills.
Okay, thank you for the roll. Now we'll go to public comment. If anybody has a, no, we got some muted now. All right. So public comment, if you'd like to come speak before, do we have a list of the people signed up for public comment? Okay. All right. No, okay. So I know we have 2 gentlemen right here. So Chet and John, why don't you come on up and introduce yourselves, the name and address for the record. You can go one at a time or stand beside, back and forth.
My name is Chet Coleman. I'm here with.
Let me stop you for a second if you could. Maybe John, you step back and let him take his mask off so he can talk.
My name is Chet Coleman. I'm here with Intertech FL LLC. And we are here today.
Address, please.
13839 Summers Avenue here in Hudson.
Okay.
So we're here today to present a proposal of our idea for a few things that we think might benefit Hudson Beach and the community as a whole. I believe we have a map to present.
We'll show right now.
Okay.
I'm trying to bring it up. Hang on a minute.
So while they're getting the map up, we have what we feel to be a pretty comprehensive proposal for dredge works, improvement on the existing beach in order to restore it to what it once was, as well as tourism and economical advantages to the community and to the county. So that shows a historical photo of what the Hudson Beach once was. You can see where it comes from Hudson Channel and wraps all the way up around over to Skeleton Key. And we're proposing to try and bring that beach back to what it once was. By using some of the dredge tailings that we're proposing to dredge out of the Hudson Channel, we believe that we can restore that beach. Is there another map we can look at?
Should you hit the arrow?
Okay, there we go. So if you want to take a look at the map, the white line represents what we're proposing as a beach footer. What that's designed to do is hold all of the beach sands in so they don't wash away in a road, substantially reducing overall maintenance cost and usability of the beach. If you take a look at the red line that's on the drawing there, that is what we're proposing to put in as a safety jetty, which will act as a breakwater so that the beach has got nice calm water to use for recreation. Additionally, a walking pathway on top of the jetty with exterior tie-up docks for day use. And I believe that we have a drawing for those docks. And we feel that by installing this system, not only will it allow a lot more public access to the existing Hudson Beach, it'll increase tourism, it'll increase the revenues that the county can collect and just open it up for overall public use. The jetty would create a nice breakwater against any future storms to help the community, and I believe it could help a lot of the local tourism.
Okay.
Is that docks there, the green?
The green would be the proposed docks, correct? Day use docks.
Two slips, okay.
Correct.
John, you going to speak as well? Okay. And name and address for the record?
Good evening.
You can take the mask off, be easier.
I'm Captain John Castor. I'm also here with Intertech Florida LLC. What I'm proposing to you guys tonight is, as far as the aids of navigation, to be able to safely move throughout these waterways. If we can pull up the map up here of the dredgeway over by Hudson Beach. Go back.
Yeah, sorry, Ken.
Okay, now if you look off the northwestern side of the Hudson Beach condos, in order for this beach anything to happen, what we're proposing is this dog leg channel that goes right across from the northwestern side of the Hudson condos over to marker number 26. Now, if you look at previous records from 1973, the channel from Skeleton Key used to go straight to marker 27 and marker 28, the second set of doubles. So we have record as far as that. It was a pre-existing channel back in 1973. And so what we're proposing is that if that's not a way to be able to go through, then we can actually still go back to that original channel up straight through and be able to connect, have Sea Ranch come all the way around Skeleton Key straight up through the Hudson Channel. Now, if you look at Cow Creek, there's a lot of props.
Do me a favor, stop for a second. I know what you're talking about, and I'm still having trouble picking it out on the map.
Okay.
So as far as to where Hudson Beach is, you go down around and come down to the center part where it kind of like forms a little triangle,
Right. I don't know if you
unconnected.
can zoom up a little bit. Now, if you look at Skeleton Key, if you look at the original Skeleton Key, there's actually a strip. If you go back a few years on the map, I don't know if we have it on there or not.
We don't know.
Oh, go back to that one there. No, there should be another one. So we don't want no.
So if you, let's go to the first map. Maybe it's easier that way because where the dredging is going to be. So that's Skeleton Key Canal right there. That picture right there, I think it does it right. If you go right from that point, we're at the bottom part of the thing, and then you angle that out diagonally going up to Hudson Channel. Is that what you're talking about?
Correct. Yeah, there used to be an original channel in 1973 that was 50 feet wide and 10 foot in depth. We have the record of that map, which I'll present to you guys as soon as I retrieve it here the next couple of days. But it's 50 feet wide and 10 foot in depth. I'm part of the yacht club, so we have a lot of personnel that's been there in years in the Hudson area that has records of these maps. But it used to go from Skeleton Key straight to that second set of doubles on marker 27 and 28. And then now if you go over to Cow Creek.
Well, hang on for a second. I just want to clarify for the folks here. When they look at the jetty that's there and the footer that's there, they want to kind of open that channel, close that channel up for regular boat traffic.
Correct.
So everybody to the north will go out to the Hudson Channel alone, everybody from on this side to the southern part will then take this channel and go all the way out. And by putting that jetty in place with all the sand in there, you're creating a beach with the spoils from the dredge. And then that waterway out front can now be deep water swimming, which, as everybody knows, we have trouble on the canal side with the canal as far as bacteria levels, et cetera. Now it's going to be just clean water that'll never get shut down because of the Gulf, pretty much. That'll just be a great swimming area on top of that where you can actually walk out, go to your boat, walk it in, and come on over.
So everybody takes their boat in front of Sam's Beach Bar now, that won't be a channel anymore.
Correct, that'll just be a swim area.
Swim area, with a
And,
beach.
But you'll have dock access there, which will alleviate a lot of congestion over at the boat ramp. And which actually bring a lot more commerce in as far as like these businesses that are there on the beach, which will draw in more tourism as far as, you know, I mean, this would be the biggest beach that we have in Pasco County.
Okay, sorry about that. But
According to DEP Environmental Services, I spoke with them quite a bit. A lot of these man-made canal systems also around in the area are all class 3, some are class 2, but we fall under the exemption as far as to be able to maintain those channels. Let's see. To my understanding, I'm still waiting on DP to get some previous maps of from like the 1960s. Maybe from 1968, I was told it used to be 50 feet wide and 11 feet of depth. If we can maintain that level for the existing channel, that would open up so much doors for this beach area and actually be able to be a port again. I mean, we have Port of Hudson, and this again would bring so much more commerce to the area. And I've spoken a little bit with Aton. If we can manage the depth and be able to have the width, that'll alleviate a lot of expense on the county to maintain these channel markers. And then we can go with Aton to be able to maintain a lot of these channel markers and lights and everything, which will alleviate a lot of stress off the county. We've done a proof of concept actually over off of Summers Ave, as far as how we do our dredge system. We use a pump system, and we pretty much all the riprap on the sides, we lay up on the sides. It pretty much holds. I mean, it's been a month now, and it holds like concrete. We actually got the exemption from DEP, and I mean, we achieved 5.5 feet of depth, and you wouldn't believe the environmental positive impacts that we've had. So many fish, the wildlife is, I mean, we just created an amazing thing, and it helped out as far as oxygenating that sediment, which allowed, it was like a feeding frenzy for a lot of these marine life. And it brought in a lot more, it oxygenated the sediment, and it just flourishes with life. And if we do that, and along the jetty, what we're proposing is maintain oyster beds, caged oyster beds to help clean up this water. A lot of these man-made canalways, put them at the end of the canal. They're maintained along the jetty. We've been having issues as far as Hudson Beach. They close it down quite a bit during the year due to bacterial infection. Well, if we can have these oyster beds around and naturally filtered, because of one oyster, adult oyster filter is 50 gallons per day. Now, if we had these caged oysters, imagine how much clearer this water is going to be in this Hudson area. And which clearer water, you're going to draw more people, more attention to the area. I guess in conclusion, I mean, we live in the area. We want to make this a better place. And we want to build our county's reputation back. And, you know, we want to be able to help the economy, build tourism. And, you know, I want a place for my kids and grandkids to be able to come here and make memories and positive memories and just, you know, want to come back. And that's pretty much what we're proposing.
I appreciate you guys bringing the idea forward. They brought this to me about a week and a half ago, and since that point in time, I've talked to Tourist Development, Parks and Rec, Mike, and just going through this thing. It's something that on the southern part, Parks was going to do this already because the sand goes into the canal, it kind of blocks the canal out and kind of erodes away. So they were going to actually do that part of it anyway. So now if I can just work the whole thing in, get this whole thing done at the time of doing the dredge, we can save a fortune and create a beach out of, you know, and bring it back, you say back to where it used to be and restore it. It's actually going to be better because now the sand's in place. 2004 was when I was elected. And at the time, the Hudson Dredge had already been permitted, approved. I got some changes made to make it better for the citizens there, but it was very tough to deal with DEP. But through this whole thing, when we talked about trying to like make that beach better, they stopped me because they were worried about the sand going into the canal, which would make us dredge it again quicker. Now, we're only back here 13 years later since that was done, but in that period of time, this would actually create that dredge would use that spoils, keep it in place, and create the beach that would just really, I would say, Mike Malakoshman in the Gulf is like ecstatic about seeing this. I mean, Mike, your team did such a great job with the side, with the roadway out there, the drainage out there, and to see this thing coming forward, I mean, they're just excited about what it can do for that whole area. Now, everybody that sees this, the funniest thing is, what are we going to do about the parking? That'll be the next thing, but that'll be a good problem to deal with. Did you want to say something, Mike? Yes, Mike Carbella?
Yes, Mike Carballo, Assistant County Administrator, Public Infrastructure. Just a quick question for you, gentlemen. I mean, what kind of cost would something like this proposal look like? I'm just curious.
So we really don't have the engineering studies or the biological studies back yet. I can give you a rough ballpark estimate. I believe for the white line there for the footer and for the jetty, and to run the main Hudson Channel to create the beach, excluding a lot of the ancillary channels, you're probably looking at around minimum $10.5 million, maximum $25 million. The going rate is anywhere between $80 a cubic yard and $150 a cubic yard, depending on what you find in the substrate.
Now, we had talked before about as far as just the, I mean, and the dredging part going through all that. And everything's got to go for bid, but for the engineering part of this thing here, talk with my staff and elsewhere, it wouldn't be, I'll say they think, this is different from what we talked about from the other day, they think they can probably get this done, the engineering part, for maybe under 100. So if we can get the engineering part done, at least we get that stage. And the engineering part, the speed of that is going to be critical just because that footer's got to be in place for us to take the benefit of the spoils to be able to put there. So I'm going to be talking closer with Keith to see, because he was going to put an allocation in already for the jetty going in on the southern part. So really to do his extra engineering, it's going to be the same basic concept all the way around. It might not be that hard to finish the rest of it off. So between him and working with tourist development, that may be the funding source for that. From there, we can get some better ideas where to go. All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen. Do we have anyone to sign up on public comment for any WebEx folks that was gonna comment? And we got a letter? Okay.
We have a letter that I can read into record.
Okay.
This is from Michael Grimes. And he says that July 1st, Governor DeSantis signed into law House Bill. Can
I hold the button? There you go.
Governor DeSantis signed into law House Bill 1091 and Senate Bill 712. Both measures are aimed at protecting the Florida waterways. In addition, Governor DeSantis approved a new $92.2 billion state budget that included $322 million for Everglades restoration, $50 million for natural springs, $25 million to fight algae blooms and red tide, and $160 million for statewide water quality improvements. The governor has also approved creation of the Nature Coast Aquatic Preserve that is designed to protect seagrass off the coast of Citrus, Hernando, and Pasco counties. A lot of effort and money is being placed on areas outside of Port Richey. What can this committee do to bring more attention to the neglected waterways in Port Richey that have direct impact on water quality? Port Richey has 25 canals that empty into Miller's Bayou, the Cody River, and finally end up in the Gulf. This area would now fall under the Nature Coast Aquatic Preserve recently established. If the governor has approved $160 million for statewide water quality improvements, what can you do to help Port Richey take advantage of these funds to improve our waterways?
Okay. All right. If there's no other public comment, All right, so hearing none, we're going to close public comment. The next is to approve the minutes from the previous meeting. I just want to say I saw a couple of typos. One, they spelled my name wrong in the second paragraph, and then they spelled Journey Key as Dorney Key on page 3 of 5. Other than that, everything else looked okay. Anyone see any changes? And if not, could I have a motion for approval?
Move to approve.
I second that.
Got a second? Okay.
You have
Go
to,
ahead.
I believe under the form has to be physically present for any action items in the next round.
Well, okay, so we don't have a quorum. Okay, all right, so we can't make a motion to approve that. That'll have to wait for the next meeting. Okay. I appreciate that motion, though. Under the quorum rules, as said, because we don't have full quorum here, we can't make any action items. So everything we do here will be informational all the way through. And we'll go from there. Let me try to get back. Okay, aquatic preserve legislation. How is that going to be handled? Joe, you going to talk about it or someone else?
Yeah, I was prepared to talk about
You-
it.
Okay.
Like, I can confirm that the legislation was signed by the governor, and so it's effective July 1st. I don't know if you had any specific questions about it, but it's pretty straightforward that the legislation basically has the boundaries of the aquatic preserve. And I would like to note that it doesn't include artificial waterways or canals or tributaries, basically everything from the mean high water line west, all the state submerged lands that would be included in that, from Pinellas County line up through Citrus County, Fort Island, Gulf Beach Park, I believe. There's another aquatic preserve that already exists to the north. So it basically closes a gap between that to the north and Pinellas County to the south. And
Does it include the beach area we were just talking about?
it would, yes.
Does that create extra problems for trying to do that?
Well, it does add a additional level of scrutiny for any project that would occur there. But I can point you to the Board of Trustees is the one that governs these things. They're the owner of the Florida submerged lands. And they have rules in Rule Chapter 18 of the Florida Administrative Code. And Rule 18-20 sets forth policies and the standards and the criteria for any project that may occur in aquatic preserve. And I can point out that there are some certain exemptions that allow certain projects. That would include the maintenance of an existing navigational channel. So any maintenance dredging is exempted and would be allowed. There's also some, it may come into play with restoring that beach. There's an exemption for the creation or maintenance of shore protection structures. Sounds like that's something that would come into effect on restoring that beach.
If I could, Joe, let me touch into that just a little bit too, because part of the reason I wanted to make sure this item was brought before this committee, and one of the things, as far as the counties go, I'll say Citrus County was informed of this whole thing. They were okay with it. Hernando County did not like the legislation, just like Pasco County was not informed of the legislation. The reason Hernando kind of relented to let it go forward was they put a clause, Representative Masula put a clause in there that anything that was going to be funded with any money from the BP Restore Act money was going to be exempted as well. That should be in a copy of that legislation as well. So part of the reason I want to do this in a couple of phases, number, we already started this first project with Hudson Beach, Leisure Beach, and Gulf Harbors. By putting some funding toward that from the Restore, they will now be exempt from that extra level. And it's going to be very important that we do that, not only just for the beach area, which is just a new idea, but also the area that connects Leisure Beach over to Sea Ranch, where those people want to connect. That's the hardest part of this whole thing to mitigate and get approved. So it's critical that this is all included with that as well. And again, that's why we're here. And from we first talked about dredging from part 1 from the very first one. Port Richey had the first allocation. We talked about using Part 3 money, and then I think the committee at that point said, let's go look at using Part 1 money for dredging for the future, but leave that Part 3 to where it was going. And having done all that, this is like an important thing to bring it forward to say, okay, here's how we want to go forward to make sure we're going to be able to get our projects done without the overburdensome issues with it. And once we're through with what we're doing, then, so be it from there. But I wanted to make sure that we protect ourselves. Some say just because it's man-made or restoring the beach, et cetera, there could be other provisions where we're going to be exempt anyway. I just don't want to take any chances and put ourselves back any further. People are waiting a long time to get this dredging done. And I think it's very important for our community to make this step forward as quick as we can. And this is the easiest way to get it done, and also helps move the projects forward. Would you kind of agree with all that?
Yes, I do. There's provision in paragraph 1 of the bill that mentions that the new aquatic preserve designation does not impose any additional permitting requirements for Restore Act projects.
Yeah. So that's why it's so critical to have that in there. And we've got to make sure as time goes on that we keep certain monies available, that with all these projects that do come forward, that we are in position to go through. So you'll see down the road, I'll be talking about looking at putting in a project where we can looking at the whole coast, all the channels, all the things that could possibly be dredged just in the study area, so that funding itself will then cover us under the blanket protections of what that exemption gives us.
Partial funding is covered too.
And partial funding is covered too. It's all good.
All good.
All right. Any comments from the board? It's kind of hard to call on folks, but I guess wave if you want to say something. Okay. All right. So Joe Richards from our attorney's office, thank you very much. And now we'll do an update on the Public Works report regarding Gulf Harbors, Leisure Beach, and Hudson Channel dredging. This is going to be from GBA.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, here. Good evening, everyone. This is Benjamin Leonard. I am the project manager for Gehagen and Bryan Associates. I'm here with Kevin Kremkow. He's a vice president and supervising engineer for the project. Our address is 3802 West Bay to Bay Boulevard in Tampa, 33629. And we appreciate having the opportunity to outline the project so far.
As you get started, I want to thank you as well for coming out today at 2 p.m. to come out and meet us at Hudson to go kind of look at the channel and take the extra time to kind of look at what we had out there for an idea. So thank you very much.
My pleasure, sir. Glad to be a part of it. Okay, so a little history about Gehagen and Bryan Associates. We were founded in 1974 by principals of Gehagen Dredging. We have experience in the United States, South America, and the Middle East region. 40 years specializing in coastal engineering, navigation, and dredging projects. We provide a practical, cost-effective approach to coastal challenges. Florida licensed engineers, surveyors, and geologists on staff. And we've engineered projects from residential projects up to 10 million cubic yard land reclamation projects and throughout the years here. Under the dredging management plan, the county seeks to develop, as you know, the county seeks to develop a dredging program for multiple canal systems within the coastal communities, which will ultimately provide recreational and commercial boaters unimpeded access to the Gulf of Mexico. In response, Gehagen and Bryan Associates, GBA, was contracted to provide engineering services for Gulf Harbors and Hudson Channel. The goal was to provide sufficient engineering analysis and field data acquisition and engineering design sufficient to deliver a fully developed cost estimate for Gulf Harbors and Hudson Channel. Hudson Channel extension was added to our contract in April under change order number 1, which includes portions of Signal Cove and Leisure Beach. Currently under contract here with just outline of Gulf Harbors, Hudson Channel, and Hudson Channel Extension. Those are the 3 main areas that we're focusing on. Under our completed tasks, task number 1, document and data collection and review for Gulf Harbors and Hudson Channel. We reviewed extensive documents such as the countywide integrated dredge management plan from 2017, the FEMA FIS, extensive previous dredging records. We found quite a bit regarding the Hudson Channel project. Prior permits, historical aerials, existing survey data where available, and environmental resource maps, just to name a few. Under completed tasks will continue. Under task number 2, field investigations, we've conducted hydrographic surveys of Gulf Harbors and Hudson Channel and extension. We performed grab sampling and analysis, as well as chemical sampling and analysis. Under task number 3, preliminary alternative analysis and conceptual design, we evaluated physical conditions and material characteristics, developed channel template models for multiple widths, and calculated volumes for each channel template alternative. Under task number 3, we are evaluating dredge material rehandling and disposal options. This is an ongoing process. Currently, we're looking at access and staging areas, dredge material rehandling site, potential dredge material management areas, hydraulic, final upland placement areas, and potential beneficial reuse sites. Currently, we're working with, reviewing and working with the county, looking into the maritime master plan. There are some options for alternatives in that, as well as Hudson Beach renourishment, as we discussed earlier. During the next steps, we will conduct preliminary benthic surveys. We're going to be scheduled following our initial call with FDEP to discuss channel design and alternatives, anticipated late July. Then preliminary agency coordination following completion of benthic survey and review, and ultimately cost estimates for the contracted areas anticipated in late September. And with that, concludes our update. Was there any questions?
Anyone from the committee have any questions? Okay, I guess touch on a few things. Thank you guys very much for the great work you're doing. You guys are right on schedule with the timing of this whole thing, so we appreciate it. And as we mentioned earlier today, when it comes time to having DEP kind of take a look at everything, I think maybe we can even work to have our local legislative delegation kind of reach out and try to get maybe the secretary of DEP down here to go look at that area where we want to try to connect from Leisure Beach over to Sea Ranch. Maybe if they see that and they can see the Hudson Beach area as well, it may provide some extra impetus. The extra channel part for extra mitigation credits that we could possibly get. We could put ourselves in a good position. I think, kind of like when we had the Army Corps down here looking at Sunwest with DEP, I think it helped everybody understand what was going on. And this project being so vital to us for up and down these 3 canals anyway, I think is something that's we can look at. So if we could coordinate with us, and let's try to make that happen.
Absolutely, that sounds good.
All right. So, and again, keep up the good work. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everybody.
Okay. All right. You guys would stay and hear this next presentation coming up, though, before you go.
Will do.
All right. So, potential Part 1 funding for future dredging projects. Should we get into conversation with that, or do you want to lead off? Pam?
I really don't have a presentation, but what I did want to let you know is I spoke with Dan Doherty, he works for Balmero Group, who is a consulting agency for the Gulf Coast Consortium. And I told him about the potential of the county submitting proposals for dredging projects and what his take was on that as far as restore funding those types of projects. He basically told me that they are definitely open to those types of projects. He pointed out that there is a project in Marion County that they did with Pot 1 funding. And he said that, we would be able to do this for a couple of reasons. And One of them was to reduce the pollutant sediments in the canals. That's a big issue. And the only thing we have to be very careful with is presenting it in a way that it's going to look like it's benefiting the private residents as opposed to the public, as opposed to the entire county. Because Restore they are not for just private individuals, they're for everybody. So he said, when we present the proposal, to make sure that that's, what we focus on. I have not had the opportunity to get in touch with Monroe County yet, but I'm going to contact them and ask them to give me a summary of what they've been doing with their project and how things are going, how far along they are. But Restore has definitely funded their project, so there is no reason why they wouldn't provide funding for this.
Okay. And I will say, I'll just touch on it. The committee didn't get to look at the Port Ritchie project. There were changes that were made to the project that we first approved. It was eventually done. The commission did not want to do that, but I still think when that goes up to Treasury, they're going to look at what was approved, and they took out the water quality benefits parts of the project and put other things in, which I think fall right into line where we may have a problem with that money getting funded anyway, and it could be liability for us. But this committee doesn't get to talk about that or hear let's say hear it. But as you're tying it in, I think everything we're doing right now for every one of these channels that we dredge, I think we can look at cooperative funding as far as with just even for our own stormwater group. Every edge canal that takes water from US 19 that gets into these canals is part of a stormwater plan. Water is got to get out to the Gulf, and across 19 is those ways, and there's going to be sediments that are in there that aren't going to be able to be used. They'll have to go to that Class A landfill site. So that will be something to be looked at. And I think what we're doing by setting up is we are going to help the Gulf tremendously. And I think when you see this presentation coming up from Sea and Shoreline, what they did up at Kings Bay will tie directly into putting seagrasses in, as the guys talked about putting oyster beds and cages in to kind of filter the water. The benefits of the whole Gulf are going to benefit tremendously, not just with dredging. And there will be a lot of private benefit for all those that live on canals that now have better access to get out there, but the water quality benefits will definitely wreak in. And there's nothing wrong with that type of benefit too, because part of this restore is not just the environment, but it is for the economic development as well. So when you tie both of those in, that's why they score so high. And I think as we look at doing all the channels up and down the coast, is putting that study together, and GBAB will be a company can look at it. That will have to go out for bid, but that'll be definitely an opportunity that'll be out there. So thanks for doing that extra work. And any other questions for Pam about this? Any comments as far as, is everyone comfortable as far as where we're heading for a direction? Okay. All right. And now we get an update on the FGA Jazmin Lake service area acquisition and future park project. Mike Carvella.
Yes, Commissioner, I submitted a memo regarding the update on the acquisition of the FGOA system that went through quite successfully. So as of July 1st, they are now under Pasco County Utilities as customers. The surplus land that has been discussed as a potential park site is still a few years away. The utility still needs to decommission those wastewater treatment plants, make the transition into its system, and then evaluate the alternative uses for that for a potential surplus. So that's still a few years away. I don't know if Keith Wiley is on the line or not to talk about any potential parks, but from the utility perspective, that land is still under utility ownership. It's still needed to operate those wastewater plants, but in about 2 or 3 years, they should be done with it.
Okay. And Mike, if I could, I'd like to congratulate you on putting that together. That was a long time project. We had looked at all sorts of different funding sources for it, and Restore was one of the funding sources. Those who may not be familiar with it, it's off a ranch. One part's off Ranch Road. We're talking about doing a potential park project. The other's off Pineapple Lane, which is just north of Fox Hollow. And the big areas there that take water in, Lane's probably in better shape as far as flooding goes, because there's some other great improvements that Mike and his team have just made out there. Replacing a 30-inch pipe that was kind of sleeved and shrunk down to like 15 inches. back up to 30 going full. They cleaned out the canal along the F2A property, which is, they just did a great job out there. And that area is probably going to be okay. But I will tell you, the people, if you see them on Coventry, to the south of Ranch Road, they flood out continually because those two big retention ponds that are there at the bottom of the hill that just hold on to water. And part of the reason we were looking at DEP funding for I can't think of the name, revolving fund money, was going to qualify because the water from that would go into a canal, which go out to the Gulf and thereby cause pollutants. So by taking this project over, it will eliminate that. And just by taking away the spray field and that, there's a great potential for a nice little park. You could have like a volleyball court out there. You could have a basketball court out there, just an open field area. And on the other side, I think along Ranch Road, where it's tough to use that park, it'd be an awesome for a dog park, which would serve over 7,500 residents in the immediate area and cut the flooding out and improve water quality. So we don't need to do anything with that. Obviously, we can't do it today anyway, but I think it's something that as we go a little bit further down the road, Mike, to bring it back to us when we kind of put some type of plan, and maybe there's some money we could put toward that as well to help out the project.
Yes, the team continues to collaborate with parks as well as stormwater to look for alternative uses of that property.
Okay.
How much restore funds went into that, you know, or I'm just curious.
At this point, there's been no restore funds. I understand there's an allocation set aside for something in a future year, Pam.
Yeah, a few big years back when the committee ranked the projects, we talked about the park, and we were thinking that that's going to be quite a few years out because we were waiting on the acquisition and everything. Obviously that needs to be done, the decommissioning, the demolition, all that needs to be done before we can start designing a park. But I think we talked about around $300,000 to $500,000.
Thank you.
So, and you know, the great thing is that's going to happen. And if we can help the park go along too, then so be it. That'll just help it get done. But because of Mike's great team of statisticians, calculators, and dedication to get it done for the people there. The people there, by the way, are thrilled to be with Pasco County Water. I mean, the transition's been phenomenal. So again, thank you very much.
The team appreciates the kind words. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments about that project? Okay. And now we're going to have an informational item from Sea and Shoreline, Collaborative Approaches to Coastline. Before these guys come up, I just want to kind of give them a little segue from how I met them. Was at the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council probably about 8 months ago. I was so impressed with them. I says, I need you to come up and take a look at Pasco County and do a presentation for us. I think probably the other counties that were in the room, they all tried to get them up there as well, but we were the first ones to get them up there. Since that point in time, they've been down to Port Richey, looked around there. They've looked around the Hudson area as well and kind of studying our coast. And I think they've got some brilliant success to talk about, which I think we can duplicate here. And what they've accomplished, I'll let them go into the details, but what they have accomplished up there has just been nothing but short of phenomenal. And that area is now booming because of this area. If this project wasn't going on up there, I think there'd be in some really tough financial times between that nuclear plant shutting down and other things that are up in that area. So, gentlemen, if you'd like to come forward, I know we got Howard Carter here from Sea and Shoreline. If you would, guys, just give your full name and then your company name and address. And thank you for making the trip.
Hi, I'm Howard Miller. I'm with Sea and Shoreline, and we're happy to be invited here to tell you about our company and some of our success in our company. You're right. When we were up in Crystal River, we started a project probably 5 years ago, and it has been extremely successful. A lot of people have jumped on the bandwagon to do what we're doing up there right now. It's a project that, as you were mentioning before, is a benefit, not just the homeowners, but also benefits different fishermen coming, tourists that are coming, people who want to do water sports and kayaking and just going to the beach and things like that from out of your community. But not only that, the people that are in your community, it brings them back down to the water and so they can use all the benefits of what we're trying to do. Carter Henney is the president and owner of Sea and Shoreline, and he's the scientist, and he is behind a lot of the system to make this thing work. It's a system that works from A to Z. It has been going on in Crystal River now for 5 years. We've just got additional funding, keep moving forward because of this success rate. That's not the only project that we're working on. We have several other projects throughout the state of Florida that we're working on that Carter will tell you all about. He'll do a little presentation. So I'm proud to be with Sea and Shoreline because of the nice and great things that it brings to the waterfront community all throughout our state. I love being on the water and my family being on the water and so forth. So it's a great honor doing that and doing something that goes back to the community. So we would like to team with Pasco County and team with other communities up and down the coast to make this a successful water cleaning project that will be self-sustaining and last for years and years and years onto our kids and grandkids moving forward. So there's a Carter and he'll tell you all about it.
All right, thank you, Howard.
Thank you so much for inviting us up here.
My pleasure.
It's a great privilege to be able to speak before counties and municipalities up around the state. A native Floridian, and nothing gets me more impassioned than restoring water bodies. How we primarily do it is we use natural seagrasses and submerged aquatic vegetation is our primary method of water quality, increasing ecotourism, and increasing fish habitat. Multiple Restore Act projects. Actually did the first BP funded project there was called the Florida was early restoration, there was emergency restoration. So I've been dealing in and around the BP oil spill funding for quite some time. Is there a clicker? Or?
There isn't, but if you want to tell me when to advance.
Okay, perfect. Great. Okay. So I want to give just a really brief, our objective is giving a really brief background on who we are, what we think we can help out with, and if there's any recommendations that we think that could help streamline the process based on other projects. Okay. You can skip one more. You can probably skip one more. I didn't know it was going to be so small. All right, so this is what got Jack or Commissioner Mariano so excited. I apologize.
It's all good.
And, is this is in Crystal River. We take before and after photos, and this was an area that was been decimated, upland canals, completely eutrophic. There's no ecological benefit, and then afterwards you get bright clean water, oxygenation, and habitat.
So look at that picture, folks, real close. That is like a phenomenal transformation that we can have up here. And those of you who have looked at some of these low canals when they're low tide, et cetera, try to imagine we get it down deeper and they come back to lush seagrass life like this. It's impressive. Great work.
Thank you. Okay. Let's get one more. All right. I didn't know this was going to be so small, but on here, I put a couple different projects. You can see this on the printout later. Is half of these projects are with working under not-for-profits and non-government entities. And what's unique about them is that it was a community effort that partnered with state, local, and federal funding dollars and matching, and galvanized the community group around their effort, or the community group galvanized the government entities around their effort, and it was a true collaborative process. We've done this from down in Key West up to Pensacola and over to Merritt Island. So everyone seems to think that their water body is a little bit different, but really they're all similar. They all react just about the same. All right, how we do it? How do you get from nasty canals to bright green seagrass? Is you dredge out the muck, you create stormwater improvements, you reduce nutrient loading, you cultivate seagrasses, plant them, protect them, and monitor them. So we're not just putting seagrass in the water and walking away from it. You have to intentionally farm it, right? There's no farmer in Iowa that grows corn that would throw a little seed out in the spring and expect to harvest in the fall without ever going out there to work it.
It's intentional effort. And a lot of times on restoration projects or mitigation projects, or on the restoration projects, are self-mitigating in some instances. Next slide. All right. And you can, next slide. All right, so this basically ties into exactly what you're doing, is by cleaning out these canals, I think it would impact or be a good, very good candidate for Restore Act dollars, because it's increasing habitat, it's increasing water flow, drainage, it's improving boat access, and really that's all the things that the Restore Act was supposed to do, is increase ecotourism and help disadvantaged communities get back to where they were. If you could skip three.
Carter, feel free to take your time too. There's no rush.
Yeah, well, I just don't want to go over what's already been covered.
Okay.
Thank you, though.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So this is the St. Crystal River project. And if you can click on the center of that, there's a short video here. Okay.
There we go.
Okay, next slide, please.
It's playing on mine.
Looks like he wants to play, yeah. There's pressure, Todd. I got faith in you.
Next one.
Sure, thank you. All right, this is St. Crystal River. This is just one example. Prior to this legislative cycle, they received, this is a not-for-profit comprised of really non-scientific people. They're comprised of a lot of different community leaders and activists within the community. And alone, they've raised over $17.7 million of state funding, $129,000 worth of grants and donations, $315,000 worth of county funding, and $512,000 of donations, fundraising, and other means. So to say that local groups and communities can't raise significant funding is just not true. They've restored over 29 acres actively, planted over 115,000 plants, removed over 160 million tons or pounds of lingvia and algae material, and removed 95% of the phosphorus and 50% of the nitrogen pollution from the treated water coming back into the system. So not only are they removing the legacy sediments that were there, they're also treating and cleaning the water that goes back in. And we're just so proud to be part of that process. Next slide. And this is what I think would be really helpful for you all to take a look at, is a little bit of background about them. Is they formed a nonprofit to champion the restoration of these canals. And this is a step-by-step model that someone could follow. They identified a legislative advocate to carry their message. They identified federal, state, and local funding options. They dredged, they planted, and they protected. And then they got third-party independent monitoring data to support the projects for future funding efforts. Two slides, please. So, as a recommendation to be able to help out with some of these canal systems is to help fund them. And we've seen this across other parts of the state as well, where they've created special taxing districts for communities on the water to get nutrients and pollution out of the water, or algae utilize restore funding. They've piggybacked contracts on previously done projects, and they've also maxed funds from SWIFT or other water management districts. And I think it's important to just note that there's funding available for these types of projects to restore the environment in these canals.
Can I have you touch on just one thing real quick?
Sure.
Joe Richard just mentioned with the governor's passing of this, they also had, I think it was $160 million in state water quality funding. Would you say we'd have a real good shot with any dredging projects like we're doing here?
I think you have a very good shot. I know that there's springs funding, there's aquatic, having an aquatic reserve and having dirty water flowing out to within an aquatic reserve is a big thing. I think that puts a spotlight on you as you're protecting the rest of your water body. You've taken an active step to get this done, and then now the state may come in and help significantly more. Springs funding, I think we dredged or unclogged over 15 springs this week, ranging from the size of a quarter to class 1 magnitude springs, 1 or 2. We'll see how they shake out. We're talking about springs bigger than the basketball. So there's springs funding. There's all different types of funding out there.
That's good, because we've got a few springs out there too that are probably not functioning as good as they have in the past.
Absolutely. And unclogging the spring vents is so crucial to get the rest of the food web going, where you can really get good quality oysters, good quality clams growing in there to filter more water.
Mm-hmm.
It creates a snowball effect, right? So nature dies through a series of death by 1,000 cuts, right? Well, it also restores itself the same way. So we've restored just about 24 acres now in Crystal River, yet there's over 150 acres of pristine seagrass beds out there in Kings Bay, Crystal River now. So it creates a snowball effect. So once you get the ball rolling, it continues to roll downhill. So what may start out as a huge undertaking in the beginning, as all those projects start to feed into themselves, you're going to see water clarity being much easier to achieve than when you started out.
I think anyone who's been to the canals up and down the coast can see what we can do a lot better than what we've got. So this is exciting stuff. I hope that Representative Missoula is going to be putting me in a position to thank him when we're all said and done.
I hope so as well. Yes. And with that, I'd love to take any questions that y'all may have.
Let me start with a couple of questions and just pretty much comments. I think in total, you guys have raised through the nonprofit like $24 million total to the current numbers.
As of this year.
Yeah,
Right.
that's a phenomenal number. $24 million to get toward that project, and the results that we can see are phenomenal. And talking to the people that are up there, even our own residents that go up there, are amazed how great the water quality is up there. So with the state having $160 million of water quality funding, I think we're in a great position to actually take a look at this and to try to get this rolling. How would you go about? Let's talk about the not-for-profit organization. Since talking to Howard about it when we were down here, he mentioned setting it up. I had called, I think, 6 or 8 people, thrilled to get on it, and a few more I know will love to jump on it. So tell me a little bit about the specifics of what you exactly need to do. Do you need to hire an attorney, tax group? What do you need to do to set it up a nonprofit the way we want to structure it? And can we just kind of copy what's already been done?
Yeah, I really think you can copy exactly what's been done. And I can't understate or overstate how important that is, whether it's Brevard County with their Save Our Lagoon initiative, where they're, raised over, I think it's around $500 million in 10 years for the Indian River Lagoon program, whether it's Keys Environmental Restoration Fund down in Monroe County. A local nonprofit galvanizes the community, so it takes and it engages them in a way that maybe a municipality or a county may not have the same reach with their peers, peer-to-peer. And once the community gets involved, and I can tell you specifically from Crystal River, everyone looked at me like I had a third eye when we first started talking about how you can restore these canals. That can be done. You know, the biggest thing in a restoration project is hope and momentum. You know, the actual physics of it are pretty straightforward, right? You remove nutrients, you dredge your plant, and you got clean water. Wipe the clock back, 45, 50, 60 years. The hard part is galvanizing the community for momentum and support. I think there's a great opportunity if there was a not-for-profit set up as a 501c3 to start raising funding and awareness in the local community. And the Restore Act funds really look at that, not-for-profits and community support in a ecosystem approach to the projects that they do fund. So multi-species, ecosystem approaches have been really highly funded through Restore Act dollars.
And to touch on to Restore Act a little bit, we did very well as far as getting out of the gate. When we started this program, we had a gentleman that got us going good. He actually helped a lot of the other counties learn how to go do Restore Act and what it all actually meant. And, with our team, the Port Richey Outfill project on Pot 3 money, we're supposed to get $4.5 million over the first 4 years. Our project was a $5 million project. There was a discussion about it. And because the project was so good, the committee said, look, you're 500 grand's over, but we want to give you the 5 million anyway, just to get started. We'll let the others catch up as they go because you're so far ahead of the game. So I think here we'll have great success raising the money. But let me ask you, by doing this broader scope project as well, I know the nonprofits are doing great between the Tampa Bay Estuary program and some others where they looked at getting Pot 2 money. And I think this project going up and down the coast, if we set the right study up, and we'll need the coaching on how to set the right study up, I think we got a great argument to go say, we want to fund this whole project up and down and go for that Pot 2 money, which could fund a huge chunk, just along with as well the other opportunities you got here. But have you had any luck with Pot 2 yet?
I've worked on Pot 2 funded projects.
Okay.
I have not been the one that requested the dollars. So
Okay.
I won the RFPs for it.
Okay, so maybe you can set us up with those people that we can kind of get the ball rolling there.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Commissioner,
Yes.
there's a couple questions from online.
Okay.
So Melissa Horn said, so where would the planted seagrass farms go? And along the dredged out canals or at the bottom? And in one of the slides, there were protected cages surrounding the new plantings. How would that affect the boating traffic?
That's a great question. So the cages are used in areas with high grazing rates where when you plant seagrass, there's nothing easier to do. You can grow seagrass where there's already seagrass. There's nothing harder to do than grow seagrass where there's no seagrass. Everything comes to eat it in the beginning, whether that's turtles, ducks, snails, or manatees. Someone's coming in there to eat the salad. And so what we use those protective cages for is we do put them on the bottom typically. Yep. We adjust the height of them on the species of plants. So sometimes we have really fast growing plants or slow growing plants, tall or short. So we adjust the size. And we always work with whatever depth that we're at. We make sure that there's plenty of navigational tolerance for boats to go by. In Crystal River and some of those upland canals, we leave at least 2.5 feet of water above the cages at mean low low. Obviously, you're going to have much bigger boats coming through your channels here, and we would position them in a way that they did not create a navigational hazard, but they were still effective at growing plants so that the meadow coalesces and you don't have to plant the entire canal.
So maybe starting on the sides and kind of letting it flow in?
Exactly.
Okay. Great question, Melissa.
Okay, so then Cynthia Armstrong, along the same lines, are we talking about growing seagrass in the bottom of the channel? And how does the boat traffic affect the seagrass?
Right. So boat traffic is a double-edged sword. when it comes to seagrass. It's really great if the boats stay on top of it. It's really not great when they run through it. So the plants that we're growing will be short. They would not be impacted by the depths in the channel. They'll help keep algae or whatever comes on to them in the very beginning. And once those seagrasses coalesce, that they create the rhizomes will start oxygenating the sediments and create conditions where algae can't reoccur.
Okay. That's all for now? Okay. The depths we found when we did the Hudson Channel, the grow back of seagrass was so amazingly quick that after 4 years of study, they skipped the 5th year. The Army Corps did, that is, because of the grow back. Would you, I mean, we're looking for a 5-foot depth, but we've got some opportunities in like the Hudson Channel possibly to go to like a 9 or 11-foot depth. Does that matter to the seagrass, or does it just make it easier because it is so much deeper?
Yeah, it's a light-dependent organism. That's a great question. It's a light-dependent organism. So in Tampa Bay, it used to grow at 6 feet. Now it goes down to 12 feet.
Okay.
In some areas, 6 feet is a pretty good average. Deeper canals, clean canals in Crystal River, we're growing plants down to 30 feet.
30 feet. Okay.
So in clear water, it doesn't really impact it that much. And another benefit of growing seagrasses in these upland canals is you can use them, you can harvest the seagrass to fund or to plant in other restoration projects. So if scallopers ran aground on the scallop beds, you could use that seagrass to transplant around because it's in a maintenance dredge area. So, and you could use that grass for mitigation projects that you may have in the future, or whatever the case may be.
Okay. All right.
How do you actually plant it? Out of curiosity.
Yeah, that's a great question. Got a couple different ways. One is physically diving and dropping down plants and then bringing in the cages at a later period. We're working right now on a project in a nuclear power plant wastewater discharge in cooling canals, not Duke, but in South Florida, and no one's getting in the water. There's crocodiles everywhere. So it's a mess. So we have planting wheels. It's essentially modified after a tobacco wheel planter. And it's a giant wheel that goes around and you can plant. You put the plugs in and it drops them off on the bottom. What we're trying to do is reduce the seagrass plant to the lowest common denominator, right? We've lost hundreds of thousands of acres of seagrass in the state of Florida alone. And we're never going to get there by planting an acre at a time. So what we try to do is scale up on larger projects so we can plant vast quantities at reasonable rates.
Thank you.
Okay. And if you would talk about special taxing districts, because that has been a conversation for the people that live on the canals to put a broad scope up and down the coast as well. What counties have done it? And if you don't have all that information, if you get it to me later, I wouldn't mind talking to my fellow commissioners about how they did it. And if you would talk about those districts a little bit.
Yeah, and so 2 counties specifically, or in general, the counties that I've seen it work in past, these taxing districts, were for a specific project, a specific goal of the project, and had a sunset on those taxing. So those were the easiest ones I've seen get passed. And for instance, in Crystal River, they created a taxing program to pay for maintenance of restored areas until the project comes to an end. So once the term of the project is completed, there'll be no more need for maintenance, and that tax goes away for the residents.
Now, I can see that for the initial dredge part, but for thinking 20 years down the road, 30 years down the road, especially for the areas that are only 5-foot depth, not the ones that can go to 9 to 11 with the Army Corps can then take the responsibility over. How do you think it would work as far as knowing we're going to come back in 20 years to go do it again? Would you put like a small number, like shrink the number down and bring it down?
And that's what they do in the Winter Haven Chain of Lakes, the Lake Region Canal Commission. What they'll do is they'll raise their rates based on canals or areas that need to be restored, seawalls that need to be restored.
Okay.
So I can bring more information.
Okay, because just figuring out how they did it for, I mean, we know we're gonna have to do it again at some point. So if there's a mechanism where it stays in place, whether it be $5 a year, just so it's on the tax roll, doesn't go away. And then when needed to come up, then it can come before the board to make a decision. Okay, we need to raise it up to go do this project and tie them in from there.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'll bring more information back.
Awesome. Any other questions? Anyone? Well, I gotta say, it's just fantastic what you've accomplished with the area. I think your timing is great as a company as far as doing such great work for the environment, the water quality improvements that you've done up there. I just hope that we can learn from you, probably hopefully employ you as we come forward. Anything to do, as you know, with Restart, it's got to be all put out for bid, which I know you guys have done everything on bid. But any help you can give us as far as coaching us with the nonprofit that set up how they did it, and any other coaching as well, love to work with you and take your ideas going forward.
Thank you. We'd be happy to be a part of it because we like doing it and we're here to help.
Yeah, you got a great company, and thank you very much for coming all the way up here tonight to speak to us. And you got a great team with you. Doing great. The presentation I've seen before this one here, and even the field work, Howard and the whole team is phenomenal. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hey,
All right.
Jack.
Have a good day.
This is Catherine.
Hey, Catherine.
Hey, sorry, my iPad died, so now I'm on my husband's. I had a question, and maybe someone asked this already, but I've seen this presentation before, and yeah, they do amazing stuff. I live on the water in Gulf Harbors, and lately we've had just tons and tons of seagrass come up to my dock, so much that my brother's dog jumped in the water thinking it was grass. And it was bad. He got all cut on the rocks on the riprap. And we were out late the other night, and the shrimpers were out. And I just wondered if the shrimpers tear up the seagrass.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yes, they do pull leaves off the top. NOAA funded a study back in the early 90s. They don't pull up the roots right now in July. So the grass, you're at the height of the growing season, and then they'll start dying back. The leaves will start going back from July to October to November. They'll add some more leaves, and then they'll lose them just like a tree does in the winter time. So a normal seagrass plant will have 10 to 15 leaves in the summer, and then they'll have 3 to 5 in the winter. Except for the hottest months, they'll shed a couple leaves, right? July, August, September. So it could be a combination of both.
Catherine, great question.
So they're not dragging the bottom; they're just going across the top.
No, ma'am. They're dragging the bottom. They have a rebar wheels essentially, and when that pounds, it scares the shrimp into the net. So
what
it does
does it do to the
displace.
scallops?
Yes.
What does it do for scallops?
What happens to the scallops?
I'll have to get back with you on the answer for that.
I am curious. All right, that's the end of my question. Thank you.
Catherine, thanks for calling in. I know Catherine is doing a first responder benefit at the farm tonight, so to call in, we greatly appreciate it. That's a great question. I will say this: we're at Hudson Beach today, and as we're looking, there seems to be a tremendous amount of seagrass out and around there too. So, good stuff.
Thank you.
All right. That'll do it for that. So we're going to go back if there's any other public comment that anybody may be on the line. I saw Carl Roth on earlier tonight. He actually runs the Port Richey Dredge Authority. He's one of the gentlemen who's actually willing to go sit on this nonprofit committee. I don't see him on there right now, but if there's any other public that wants to speak or comment, even if you spoke before, you can come forward. You would come forward to the mic.
Yeah, Jack, I can probably answer that question as far as for Ms. Starkey.
Okay.
I'm a former commercial fisherman myself.
And just your name and address for the record, sorry. Jonathan, your name and address for the record.
I'm with Intertech LLC. I'm a former commercial fisherman myself. I used to shrimp actually out of the Hudson area. I'm prior Coast Guard, retired Coast Guard 10 years.
Thank you for your service.
So basically, these nets, we have openings, what we call they're cattail webbing. They're about 4 inches just after the roller frames, and that allows for cattails, snails, and like scallops, for instance, to be able to fall through underneath the net. And as the roller frames spin, the shrimp pop up and then enter into the net. Now, these roller frames are designed to roll over on top of the grass to keep any of that grass to keep out of the net. So that way you're just picking up pure shrimp, and that's pretty much how that works.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Okay. Any other public comment? We're going to close comment, public comment, and we'll talk about the next meeting, which is going to be Thursday, August 6th. It'll be here, I'm assuming 6 p.m. as well. So what we learned tonight is we can't vote on anything unless we have a quorum. So we're going to need, is it 9-member committee? So we're going to need 5 people here. If you can make it, we could greatly appreciate it. Otherwise, we're again stuck to making any motions, and we're going to need to be making some motions coming up. The seating we can set up the way we do with the commission. We can have about 3 people, maybe 4 people up here. We can set up the meetings in the front for other people. So if all 9 show, we can still accommodate everybody. But we need to really try to get at least 5 of us here so we can go forward. I think with the ideas we have today, staff has got some general ideas what to bring back for us with ideas and agenda items coming up. But I think it's going to be, especially with GBA finishing up their work coming forward by September, we're going to be ready to make some decisions as far as going out to bid and getting some stuff rolling. So the opportunities are coming up to actually get some stuff going again.
Good.
All right. Any other thoughts or questions from anybody? Okay. Then we're going to adjourn the meeting. Thank you all very much. And Todd, great job with all the technology. Thank you. And thank you to the clerk's office for keeping me in line on agendas and everything else. Thank you very much.